Every week we do a Q&A with interesting and accomplished members of the adaptive community to find how they persevered, how they innovated, how they built communities, and how they found solutions. Welcome to the Nametags Chat Podcast. Welcome to Chris Waddell's Nametags Chat Podcast, where we celebrate stories of resilience. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. We're super excited today. We have Femita Ayenbeku, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly,
you are
joining us. She is a bronze medalist from 2019 at the World Championships in Dubai, finished in 6th place in Rio in 2016, which was like literally months after she got a running leg. So she was just getting started. At the trials in Minneapolis in June, she broke the American record, which had stood for 15 years, 12.84 in the 100 meters. Femita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That was great.
All right. Well, that is, well, there's a big challenge here, right? Because you are the one who went and did the voiceover for the Paralympic trials, for the event, for the trials, for the video, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
I did.
Have you done voiceover work? How did that come about?
Well, it just came with the commercial. So they showed me like the whole breakdown of it, and they asked me if I would do it, and I said yes, and it was really cool. We did it in a studio, so I felt like I was like, you know, about to record a song or something, but it was a good time.
Well, I was working with all the television people, and they're like, wow, she was really good.
Oh.
You've got that going for it. Are you a singer too? I mean, you felt like you were recording a song. Are you a singer too or not?
I'm not. Just
okay.
Sounded nice.
It sounded nice. It just seemed cool that you were doing that. So let's go back to Rio. Rio was kind of fun, right? I mean, so you got a running leg, and you got a running leg from Challenge Athletes Foundation, right?
Yep. And OSER.
And OSER. How did that end up working? Because you'd been a basketball player beforehand, and then suddenly you get a running leg. How did that happen, and what did that do for you?
My prosthetist actually put me into, like, the running clinic was coming to Boston, and they were looking for an amputee to donate to. So my prosthetist actually did all of that backhand work. I didn't even know that they were giving me that blade until that day. And people always make fun of me because I had to get fitted for it. So we had to make a casting for the leg. And I just didn't realize they were going to let me keep it. So everybody's like, you guys, you got fitted for the leg, you had all these appointments, and you didn't think that the leg was going to be yours. And I'm like, I really didn't. So that day when they surprised me, it was just, it was crazy. Because like you said, I played basketball my freshman year of high school, but I only played for a few months because my leg was getting a lot of blisters from the running in the leg that wasn't made for running. So I played for those few months, and then I stopped. So when I was 23, I started working out and like going to the gym and just trying to get more active. And then later on that year, that's when I got the blade. So everything kind of just fell into place.
Well, I mean, you had so many different things going, because you went to school as a personal trainer. So
yeah,
right?
So that was after.
So that was after. Okay.
Yeah,
so that was after. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the leg. And what did this leg do for you? Because the thing is, it sounds like there was a major transformation when you got a running leg.
There was. Walking and running are like a world of a difference, especially when it comes to prosthetics. So I always tell people, you know, people always ask me like, what keeps you going? What makes you want to run? And I always say, I don't remember what it feels like to have 2 feet, but if I did, like, if I could think of that memory in my head, it would be what running is to me. I feel like I have 2 feet when I'm running. When I walk, I think about every step that I take, you know? So like, I'm like, okay, left, right. I'm always really like aware where my prosthesis is when I'm walking. But when I run, it's like my body just has to move, you know? So I fell in love with that feeling once I got that blade, and I just kept chasing it.
the sense of freedom. Can you describe what your blade is, like a running blade? Because a lot of people will not have seen this.
Yeah, I wish I had one. I always keep my legs in my car. But so
It's got to
there's
freak
there's
somebody out
a
if they go by your car. There's a collection of legs in it.
so it's a C-shaped prosthesis that has a spring in it, and it's made with carbon fiber. And I get mine through Oser. So yeah, it kind of just mimics my sound side. So everybody always asks again if the blade is an advantage, right? If that spring makes me run faster. But I'm like, if my right leg was going 1,000,000 miles a minute, if my left leg wasn't doing it, then I just wouldn't be able to. So it can't really give me an advantage if my other side isn't just as strong and fast. So that's basically what the blade does. So it mimics my sound side, and it just makes me even.
That's a great answer. And that's something that I haven't heard. And when you say it, it makes sense. Like biomechanically, if one side's going way faster than the other side, it's not going to make you any more successful.
Right.
Basically, you're going to end up in a heap on the ground before long. Now,
Exactly.
so you're a below the knee amputee though, right? So that
Yeah.
there's a distinction there in that you still have your knee. And
Mhm.
so this leg is basically like the lower half of your leg.
Right.
Now, when did you get the confidence to go and walk around in shorts, walk around in skirts? How did this work? Because it didn't come immediately, right? So you had an accident when you were 11 years old.
Yeah. Um, so right before I got my prosthesis, we had to do this outing and I was in rehab. We had to do this outing where like it took us back into the community, but I didn't have a prosthesis at the time. So I had to go in my wheelchair and I had my stump propped up. And I'll never forget, we were going into the theater and a little boy and his mom were walking out. And he looked at me and he just started crying. Like he was holding his mom and he was crying. And I was only 11 at the time. So I was looking at him and I'm like, what's wrong? Like it made me feel some type of way about myself. And I'm like, I don't want to scare people when I go out. Like, I don't want people to look at me and be scared. So like that in the back of my mind, just growing up, I always thought like, let me hide this so people won't be scared of me. Or like, that idea, like it really stuck with me. So it wasn't until I was 18, I remember it was my freshman year of college, and I had these friends, and I'm like, I'm just so tired of like just feeling like I have to hide myself. And like, I want to be able to go outside and not be so worried about people staring or kids pointing or like all of those things that happen. So my best friend, she's from Brooklyn. So I brought some shorts. I took a bus up to Brooklyn and I'm like, okay, today's the day we're going to go outside. I'm going to wear shorts and I'm not going to like think or care about what anybody else is doing around me. So that day, it was a huge day for me and for us, because I made like huge strides after that when it came to like just being confident and not caring what people think.
So this was your walking leg that you wore shorts with. Did you have like cosmetic stuff on your leg? Because sometimes people will have it kind of look similar to your regular leg. Did you
Yeah,
have that? Because
I
then
did.
you go from there to looking like the Terminator leg.
Yes, exactly. So that was a part of the whole transition. Because like I said, I had it covered for a while and then I'm like, all right, let's take it a step and let's start wearing shorts. But we can't do everything at once. So I had it out, but I did have it look like my sound side. And that was that for a while. And then after a little bit, I'm like, you know what? I don't care about trying to make people think that this is real. I want people to look at me and instantly know, yeah, that's something else. So when I had the cover on, I found people would stare longer because it looks real, but then you're like, is that really real? Like they'd have so many questions, so they'd stare for so much longer. So I'm like, let me just leave it out now. So when you look,
So then you went totally Terminator with your leg. And so you've got the shorts and you've got the carbon fiber, you've got the shock, you've got the, it looks cool. I mean, it's like technology, right? And
Yeah.
so you had that little kid who started crying back when you were 11. What have been the reactions that you've had now? I mean, I'm sure you get some reactions where people have different reactions.
Mm-hmm. I think people can sense confidence. And I feel like ever since once I started running with Paralympics and all that stuff, I think I gained a lot more confidence. So like people don't, I stand tall, like I just feel more confident. So with the way that I am now, people they don't stare. And if they do stare, they're like going like this, like they're proud of me or something. But the reactions are definitely way better. But I always prepare myself. Like everybody doesn't see amputees all the time, you know, like it is new and it is shocking for a lot of people. So like I've grown to just be more understanding to that, and like just know like some people aren't going to know what this is, and sometimes maybe you might have to explain it to somebody. Like I'd way prefer somebody to come up to me and ask me a question than to stare at me from afar. So like I've just gotten a lot more better about like, you know, just trying to be more receptive and understanding to people and how they feel, and just giving people information if they want it.
When people ask a question, where does that usually start? Is it about the leg? Is it about the accident? How does that start usually?
A lot of times people ask me if I was in the military, and that is it's like a given, but hopefully that changes and people just understand all amputees aren't, you know, ex-military, and all ex-military are amputees, you know. It doesn't have to be one and the same. But it's either that or they just ask me what happened usually.
Right, exactly. And are you okay with that now? Does that come with the confidence too?
Oh yeah, I'm okay with it, because I'm like, I try to think to myself and I'm like, if I seen somebody that looked like me, would I want to ask them a question? I probably would. So it's like, you know, I like to be informed than to like just not know. So I think it's a good approach.
Okay, and we've been talking around it, so you're going to have to tell the people what happened to you. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
We got this deep into the hole here.
Have to tell the story.
Exactly.
So I was in a car accident, me and my sisters and my cousins. My cousin was actually driving and we were on the highway. She lost control of the car on the highway. There were not any other cars around us. We didn't get into an accident with anybody else. She just lost control. And when she lost control, the car spun around. And so it wasn't a bad accident. Everybody inside of the car was fine. But you know those really old-fashioned station wagons where you can like sit in the trunk, like the back?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so me and my sister Wendy, we were sitting back there, and so everybody else inside of the car was fine. They ended up just hitting the guardrail, but when the car spun around, the door opened and me and my sister flew out. So we actually ended up on like different sides of the highway, and like my sisters and my cousin, they literally had to go like searching for us on the highway. So it was an intense night. I just remember waking up, like I blacked out when the cars like crashed, but I remember waking up and it was just a twilight zone. But we ended up being in the hospital for a few months after that, and then I ended up going home. So
okay. And so you were back there because you were the youngest, it sounds like, right?
yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
little kids are in the back. Because you're in a big family, right? Where do you fit in the family?
So I have 4 older sisters, a little brother, and 2 little sisters.
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay. So
Yeah, it's a
4
big
older
bunch.
sisters, a little brother, and 2 little sisters.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So is that 8 or is that 9?
8.
It's 8. So 8. So 8 of them and 1 of you. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Now that we have the math part of the program done. So because we've got to get back to the confidence, because you decided when you're 18 that you were just going to wear shorts, and you said you went to meet your friend. Who is this friend? Where did the friend come from? Like, how long had you known this friend, and how did that work? Because I mean, this has got to be one of your most trusted people in your life, right?
Oh, actually, we were friends for maybe like 9 months. I met her in college. So it was the first day of college. We had just moved all my stuff into my dorm room, and my family, like they helped me move in, and then they had left. And so at the time I was wearing leggings. It was a hot day, but I was wearing leggings. And I remember I was walking outside to go meet some people outside, and this guy came up to me and he was like, "What's wrong with your leg?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, it like just freaked me out because I thought I was hiding it so well. And I'm like, I didn't expect somebody on the first day to catch this, you know? So I ran into the bathroom and I was crying, and I was just crying in the bathroom, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I was like devastated. And this girl, Caitlin is her name, she ends up walking into the bathroom, and she's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, this boy just asked me what's wrong with my leg. And then she looks down, she's like, there's nothing wrong with your legs. Your legs are fine. Don't listen to him. Like, you look fine or whatever. But she still at that moment hadn't noticed my leg either. So then it wasn't until like we ended up going out, and then we were having a conversation, and I'm like, I was like just recapping the story. And I'm like, yeah, because of my prosthesis. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, my leg, it's fake. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then from there, we just became really, really close. And then she was the person I decided to take my first steps with.
That is awesome. So she did this. So this is like when you're 18, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But then the confidence, it sounds like the confidence started to grow when you started to compete too. But that was another couple of years, right? Or
yeah.
before you got this running prosthesis, when did you get the running prosthesis?
When I was 23.
23. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So 5 years.
Yeah, it's a process. There's this one little girl that I know. She must be 10 now. And she was having some issues, and she was having some body issues. And I had to explain to her, and I'm like, listen, you are beautiful the way that you are. Do not waste these next few years over something that absolutely does not matter. And like, I always tell myself, I wasted so much time just being so worried about what people are going to think and all of those types of things. And like from 18 to 23 was where like I got my confidence, but like I needed to really own it. Like I told myself that I was going to be okay, but I needed to actually get to a point where I actually was okay, you know? And so that's where like the time kind of came in. And then going into Paralympics, like I always tell people, I love competing and I love doing that, but the atmosphere of being around so many people that are like you, so many people that aren't going to judge you or feel any type of way if I decide to just take my leg off and start drying it, or if I just decide to throw it around, you know, like nothing is new to anybody there. And we're all just like, it's just so comfortable. So like that really opened me up a lot too.
So you finally got peers. Now you created a nonprofit organization too, right? So so it sounds like Limitless Creations, but it's limb, you know, so LIMB -it -less and then creations. So
Yes.
So basically not having a limb, creations, which is pretty creative, definitely. But so, because it sounds like for you, you didn't have any peers really, or any role models, mentors.
Yeah, definitely not. So that's kind of why I started the organization. So the mission is creating awareness and providing support to the amputee community, as well as people with physical disabilities. And for me, when I had my accident, the doctors asked my parents if I wanted to do therapy or any of those types of things. And at the time, we were like super, super religious. And, you know, we were just more focused on like rehabilitating me physically and all of those other things. So I think for me personally, had I had somebody like myself or just a community to be a part of going through those, like the confidence would have came a little bit sooner. And, you know, all of those self-image ideas that I had about myself, like I think a lot of those things, like the learning curve for those things would have been a lot shorter had I had an organization like mine, which I'm trying to grow. But, you know, I think that was like really, really important to me, just being able to connect with other amputees.
What does your organization do? Like what kind of events, or how are you reaching the kids?
So not currently, let me not even say currently. So I do events like creating awareness. So there's this one event that I did and I absolutely loved, but it's about like daily life things. So people always ask me how I take a shower, or like how I can stand up, you know, for so long, or those types of questions. So I started in this event, it's called, the Amputee Challenge. And it's who can stand on one leg the longest. And I actually did it one year, and the winner, she stood on one leg. It was 37 minutes and like 55 seconds. So it was really, really impressive. But during the event, we do like little challenges for the people in the audience to kind of just learn about amputees and just like the disabled community. So creating awareness, that's something like that. And then bringing the community together. There's another event another thing that I started, and it was called Amped Nails. So once a month I would take an amputee out to get their nails done. And that started because I went to go get a pedicure one day, and I went to like 3 or 4 different nail salons. And I'm like, I want to get a pedicure, but it was only on one foot. So I'm like, okay, so how much is it? And if a pedicure costs $22, I was expecting them to charge me $11. Everywhere I went to, if it was $22, they were trying to charge me $17. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So I just kept going to nail salons until I found somebody that would charge me half. And I was just so happy with that. I'm like, I'm going to bring business here, because if you're going to charge amputees half price, this is where they should be coming in. They shouldn't be getting gypped at all of these other nail salons or things like that, And so just being able to get people out in the community, because a lot of amputees won't go out and get one limb done just for the sake of like being shy or just not wanting, So like I would go out and get my nails done with them. And, it was an experience for both of us. And yeah.
So hold on. So 2 questions. One,
Yeah.
back to the standing on one leg. Are these able-bodied people that you're having standing on one? So they're getting the experience of what you're doing. I remember back when I was on the ski team, we did a commercial with Chevy trucks. They were a sponsor of the ski team at that time. We did a commercial with them, and we had a bunch of amputees, but then we also had the freestyle team, and we had to leave earlier. So the amputees in the hotel, these guys are getting up and they're hopping from bed to the bathroom, into the shower, whatever, and the other guys who didn't have a call time until much later, were like, I don't want to be below these guys, because they're bouncing around and making a ton of money.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was good. So they had to wake up at the same time that we did. But then, so on your prosthetic leg though, you won't paint the nails of your, because you do have like, sort of like a fabricated foot generally on your prosthetic leg, right?
Yeah.
So you're not matching it up, or are you, or how does that work?
Well, I paint them, but that paint lasts on there forever. So like maybe I'll have to paint it like every 3 or 4 months or something, but definitely not as often as I get my left side done.
Okay. But anytime you're going to change the color, then you have to paint your prosthetic leg as well. Okay. And so, this is the important stuff. But then what happened? I want to get back to the competition part of it. What happened when you started competing? Because I'd imagine that your leg went from being sort of functional in a transportation kind of way to functional in a performance way. And how did that affect the way that you looked at yourself and looked at your prosthetic leg?
The blade obviously the blade.
The blade, certainly. Yeah, the blade is more performance oriented, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It just, before I got the blade, I knew that I would probably only ever have just walking legs, because insurance doesn't cover anything outside of that. And it just didn't seem like it was attainable for me. So once I got the blade and I was able to do the things that I was able to do, I'm like, I guess this isn't that bad. I just never realized that I could live such a fulfilling life and not feel insurance isn't going to cover it, so I can't afford to live like that, or those types of things. I have a water leg now, and those are things that it's people don't realize. It's we need a different leg for everything. I need a leg to walk around. I need a leg for the gym. I need a leg to run. I need a leg to wear heels. I need a leg to go in the water. It's you need a leg for everything. So I'm
you need a leg for high heels, right?
Yep.
A specific leg. So so legs in a lot of ways are like shoes for other people.
Yeah.
They just happen to be a whole lot more expensive.
Exactly. And then we still need to buy the shoe. So it's like
So then you started branching out. What did that do for your confidence? I mean, because you go from hiding it to celebrating in some ways, right?
mm-hmm. It it boosted it a lot, definitely a lot. Especially once I started running and just going to the gym and just being more out there, like people would give me compliments all the time. And at one at one point it felt like people were only complimenting me because I was an amputee, like, oh, look at her, good for you, like out there trying. But I got to the point where like I work out so good, like I'm a personal trainer now, you know? So it's like, I know people have to give me that respect, whether I was an amputee or not. Like you do the damn thing. Like, you know, like they have to give me that respect. So it definitely helped a lot because it like overall, like physically I was able to get myself up, and then like that confidence, it definitely boosted it.
And 12.84 for 100 meters, they have to give you a fair amount of respect though, too, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Because I mean, maybe you know some people who can keep up with you, but if you do, they are a specific set of people, a subset of people. Nobody off the street is going, oh yeah, Femita, yeah, I'll come run 100 with you. That'll be great. Just
Yeah,
my
no,
back
no.
the whole time.
Thank you, thank you.
What about when you're training? I mean, in some ways, as a trainer, you're looking to be unique, right? How do your clients look at you?
Um, they think I'm crazy. They're like, Femita, we can't do the stuff that you do, but I just like to push them. I like to push them, and I always tell them, like when I have them do things, they're like, oh, you're just having us do this because you can do it, and I'm like, I only was able to do it because I had to start from somewhere. I'm like, you guys know I didn't wake up like this. You have to build yourself up. So like I always just try to keep them in that path of like understanding we're building something here. We're not just gonna be strong tomorrow, but we're building.
So, like, what kind of things will you have them do that really challenges them?
Um, More so like my hit sessions, like my high intensity interval trainings. Um, they think I'm crazy because I don't want them taking any breaks. So they think I'm crazy with that, but
So this kind of interval. So what specifically? What are you making them do, and then how much time are you giving them in between to get ready?
so they'll do a minute on with a 30-second like active rest, but it's usually like squats or a high plank or like, you know, something like static, but still like keeping them going. So they always want to take breaks on the squats and the planks. It's understandable. It's understandable. But like I said, we're building something here. So
You're building something and you're keeping them going.
yeah.
So when you first got this leg, it sounds like that was it. Like you decided this is it. Like what was going through your mind when you got your running leg, when you got your blade? What was going through your mind, and did that just transform your life? I mean, how did that work?
So initially, I met a man named Jerome Singleton at that clinic that day that I got the blade donated to me. And he came up to me and he was like, you know, you look like you're in good shape. Like, what are you about to do with that? And I'm like, I mean, I just want to learn how to I want to learn how to use, I want to learn how to run. I don't know how to run. And he was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I have my coach down at the Reggie Lewis Center in Boston. You can come down and, you know, like talk to him and see what you want to do. And so, like I had told you, I had just started going to the gym in February of that year. So now it's November of that year. So I'm like, the gym's been working. Somebody said I look like I've been working out. So that was nice.
And hold on. You have to back up too. Jerome, who is a Paralympic athlete, has a nickname of Professor Speed because one, he's fast, and two, he has multiple crazy advanced degrees, right? I mean,
yes,
astrophysics and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, crazy
yeah.
stuff. So yeah.
Yes. I didn't even know who he was at the time when he, like, when we spoke. And then when I learned who he was, I'm like, oh, it was very humbling because I was like, I can't even believe he said anything to me. But yeah, so we ended up going to the Reggie Lewis Center, and I met our coach, Sherman Hart, and he was like, I'll work with you for as many days you decide to come. And I'm like, all right, well, I really want to learn how to use it, so I'll come every day. So I started going 5 days a week. And at first, coach he will always say this, like he was ready to quit on me those first 2 weeks, but I don't think that's true, but that's what he says. And I didn't know how to run. I told him that, and I'm like, I just really didn't know what I was doing. My arms were all over the place. It was a hot mess. But once we started training, and he was like, oh, I'm going to sign you up for a competition. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? I didn't realize, like, I don't know. I don't know. My head just wasn't there. I wasn't even thinking about that. I really was just trying to learn. And so he signed me up for a competition, and I fell coming out of the blocks. And I don't know. I think I ended up coming in like 3rd place or something. And this was against traditional athletes. I don't know where I was. I can't even remember. But I remember leaving that race, and I was so mad. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know why I didn't win. Like, I fell. And he was like, this was your first race. I don't know what you thought I was expecting from you, but like, I just wanted to see what was going to happen. So we ran a few races after that. And then that's when I guess he decided he was getting me ready for trials for Rio.
So this was how many months before the trials for Rio did you do your first race?
I want to say March. So trials for Rio was my 4th and 5th race that I had ever ran in my life.
4th and 5th race ever. So March to June.
Yeah.
Is really, so that's 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months of competing. We started training in like January.
Okay, well that adds 2 more months. So this is 5 months from a rank beginner to not only going to the Paralympic trials, but to making the Paralympic trials. And you got a bit lucky with your coach though too, right? So who is your coach?
My coach is Sherman Hart. He is a very, very well-known coach in the Boston area. He's done amazing things with athletes, but yeah.
Yeah, so a legendary coach from Northeastern, right? I mean, it won the Colonial Athletic Conference and really put the track program at the school on the world map, right?
Yeah.
But he retired in 2012, didn't he? And then how did he start working with you guys?
I don't know how him and Jerome got met up together, but I remember Jerome isn't originally from Boston. He was from down south, but he ended up moving up here, and he was training for Rio, I believe. Yes, for Rio World Championships. But yeah, Rio. And he was just like looking for coaches out here, I guess, and he reached out to Sherman, and they ended up connecting.
So you end up kind of meeting Jerome. You get a leg, you meet Jerome, you get lucky enough to get introduced to a great coach. You're in a great situation. The clock is ticking to a certain extent because you're approaching trials for Rio. What was that like? So you go to trials. This is in North Carolina, right? This is in Charlotte.
Yeah.
You go to trials. And did you know, were you just running the 100 and the 200 or the 100 and the 400, or what were you running?
I was running the 100 and the 200. But the funny thing is, I didn't know that competition was trials. So like I said, I had ran a few races prior to trials, and they were local races, maybe like a 30, 40-minute drive here or there. And my coach was like, oh, so you have to sign up for that race that Jerome is going to and think. He was like, it's trials. And I'm like, okay. And then I went and I looked on, like, how much a hotel would cost, how much the flight would cost and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to that. I'm like, no, that's fine. Well, I'll just do another. I'm like, I'll do that race another time. But like, let's just find some more local races for me to do. And he's like, what are you talking about, Femita? You have to go to that race. And I'm like, why do I have to go to that one? Like, I really didn't understand. And he's like, I'm going to knock your head off. Call Joe Walsh. So Joe Walsh is the president of Adaptive Sports New England. And so I contacted Joe and I'm like, I guess, my coach thinks that I might have like a good chance at winning this race that is down here. So like, if you could help me go. And I still have the email till this day. It's hilarious. And I was very unsure about what was going on. So I reached out to Joe and he ended up saying that he would, sponsor me to go down there. And then I ended up winning the 100. And it was just so funny because I'm like, I didn't realize that like this competition wasn't like every year. I didn't know what it was. So my coach always kills me about that. He's like, and you thought you were going to just wait. Because then when Tokyo got postponed, he was like, you thought you were going to make this race in another 4 years. And now look, it's another 5 years. And like, it's just funny to look back on.
So when did you realize that you were actually at the trials and that this was the only step you could take to go to Rio and compete in the Paralympics? When did you realize that?
When they named the team. So like the day after everyone was done competing, we had to all go into this room where they would like, name everybody that made the team. And I thought everybody that was in the room was on the team. So they do everybody's names and I wasn't really listening for anybody's name specifically. So I remember once everything was over, I went up to somebody and I asked them, I'm like, yeah, all right. So like, what's going on next? And she was like, I didn't make the team. And I'm like, oh, like this is a thing. I really did not realize it. So it was in that moment where I was like, oh, like I just did something here. I didn't realize what I had just did.
And so when did you, so I guess you realized that you were going to Rio, that you were going to
at that moment. Yeah. In that meeting, because everybody was like, oh, congratulations. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, so like you're gonna go to Rio. And I'm like, wait, when is that? And I'm like, I gotta check my schedule. I don't know if I can go.
Meanwhile, all these other people have been planning their lives, or at least years in advance, trying to get to this point. And you're like, oh, so I'm here. So I guess maybe I'll go if it fits in my schedule. I don't know if I can make it. When did you at some point, did you kind of get serious about it and say, okay, now I want to make my mark? Or how did that work?
No, I did. I definitely did. Once I was still working a full-time overnight job at that time. And it wasn't until I think maybe like a few months after we came back from Rio and, I was going to practice tired and like, it's like after training like that for a certain amount of time, your body just gets tired. And I was just really exhausted, especially with working the overnights. I was working like 50 to 60 hours a week. It was just crazy. So my coach was like, you have to put more time into this. Like, we're not going to get better if you're tired all the time, if you're not recovering, if you're not doing the things that you need to do. So I decided to get serious and become a professional full-time with training and all that type of stuff. So that's when it kind of got more serious, going into World Championships, I believe in 2017.
In 2017. Okay. So this is when, so you went to 2016 kind of like, yeah, I'm here. This seems like a great party. Like, we'll have fun. Brazil's good. I'll try to.
Well, can I just say that first blade that I got was for joggers. It was a jogger running leg. Like, it wasn't made for sprinting. So like the C in it was like so much smaller. So when I look back at those races, everybody had these big giant blades. And here I was with this little baby blade. And I'm like, okay, something needs to be different. Like, that's when I'm like, okay, this is crazy. I need to get my life together. So that's that was
so describe the difference. I think I understand the difference, but you're talking about you had this tiny little C versus the other people who had this gigantic one. Why would the gigantic one be more beneficial in sprinting than the smaller one?
Because it can't. So the smaller C, there's not a big enough spring to mimic my sound side. So it doesn't give me enough give, I could say, like enough push with the blade.
Okay.
Yeah. So so the extreme that I have now, because that was a flex run that I had back then. So it just wasn't made for sprinting. You know, like we said, there's different legs for everything. That's for jogging, and the other one is for sprinting, and that's just what that is.
But you still did well. You were sixth in the
In the world.
200
Yeah.
in Rio, right? And you had the worst lane draw as well, right? You had lane 1 for the 200, so it's hard to run fast out of lane 1. So then you come back and you decide, okay, I'm going to go full time. I'm going to get the proper equipment. How did you go through that process, that transition of becoming full time, getting the proper equipment, those kinds of things?
It was like, it just took a lot of getting used to, I would say, for the most part, with just being more consistent with everything when it came to my training, you know, like staying on top of my gym days, staying on top of the foods that I'm eating, and just being more conscious about those things. And like going from not having to worry about that at all to like trying to go full throttle at once. There was definitely like a learning curve in there. It was like I was either working out too much or not enough, and I had to just find a happy medium.
So you were able to find that. And now as you approach Tokyo, how do you feel? How do you feel in terms of your progression, in terms of where you are? I mean, you broke an American record in the 100, which is really your chosen event, right? The 100?
Yes.
But you will run the 200 as well in Tokyo.
I will, yeah. For whatever reason, I've like trials just now was probably the best performance I've ever had in 100. And that's what I've been telling everybody. I'm like, that's my thing. And I'm like, I have to prove it to somebody, because I've been saying this for the last 4 years. And they're like, yeah, we don't believe you, especially because I medaled in Dubai in the 200, you know?
Bronze in the 200.
I ended up, I ended up getting disqualified in the 100 in 2017 at World Championships for a false start. Yeah, so like the 100 it just hasn't shown up for me yet, but it did last month, so that was good.
Well, it did last month, but it was interesting too, right? Because you broke April Holmes's record, which had stood for 15 years. Yes. But Beatrice was right behind you. I mean, the two of you went 12.84, and did she go
12.86?
12.86. So 2/100ths of a second between the two of them. And you got out first, and she was running you down at the very end, but you got across the line first. But then there's this sisterhood of sprinters as well, right? Because you're a little bit older than she is, but yet April was there as a spotter at trial. Yes, what's the relationship that you've ended up creating with all of these sprinters, all these women amputee sprinters?
It's a like love off the track, stay away from me on the track type of relationship. You know, in those races, it's every man for himself. So you gotta only be there for yourself. But we're all very friendly. April Holmes, I love her. She's just amazing. Beatrice is a sweetheart. So I think off the track, they're very nice ladies, but on the track, I don't know them.
Maybe you can describe what is your attitude when you get on the track? It sounds like you have a bit of an attitude when you're on the track.
I zone out. I zone out when I get on the track. I look straight at the finish line, and I just tell myself that's where you need to go. Sometimes I really can black out in a race. It's like I love it and I hate it, but that's how like I just zone out. I have to zone out.
That is awesome, which is funny because a lot of athletes try to get to that zone. But does it come naturally to you? It sounds like it does.
For the most part now, yeah. I think it's crazy how much like repetition and those types of things, like once you do it, like I said, with that blacking out, if I'm in that zone where I'm like, all right, just get it done, then I can kind of get it to tune in like that.
Okay, now the mental side of the game is so important for sprinters. I mean, you're getting out of the start. is your reaction time is so important. Then, I mean, can you talk us through, because we kind of have a little bit on the mental or in the attitude that you bring to it. How about, can you talk us through your race? Can you talk us through the objectives of the 100 is your race? So what are you trying to do in the 100?
Trying to be reactive to the gun, powerful, coming out the blocks, and just holding it all the way through. That is like the 4 main things. And I always think about, form. Form is always super important. But when I'm running, I think being powerful, like for me, being powerful out of the blocks is like my main focus. Because I know if I come out strong enough, then like my turnover and everything else will kind of carry through the rest of the race. So I kind of just try to nail that part down. And then all the way through is all I hear when I think about my coach or anything. And it's like all the way through, just keep swinging your arms and just run fast. So.
So it really is that trigger. The start is the trigger, and you kind of take over almost on muscle memory afterwards. But the start is the part that you have to really think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you start well? Do you consider yourself a good starter?
Yes. Yes, I do. It's like I'm thinking, because I'm like, oh, I've come a long way, because my starts used to be really, really, really bad. But now I'm like, when I get it, it's great.
How often do you get it?
Well, I just got it, so.
This is the trials. You got it when you were in trials, but is it 1 out of 10? Is it more than that, or 1 out of 10 or not? Or
honestly, these last few races, like this season it's been really good. It's been really, really good. So I'm just trying to stay on this track. I've had, I think, the best starts that I've ever had, like this year.
You had a chance to hang out with the best ever, right? So you were on Usain Bolt's all-star team?
I was.
How did that work? What does that mean? What is Usain Bolt's all-star team?
So they were having it was called Nitro Series in Australia. And they were putting together a team of traditional athletes and Paralympic athletes. And they had like country teams and then a mixed team. So I was part of the mixed team, which was Usain Bolt's team. And so, we got to go down to Australia. We had a really good time. He's really nice. And watching him run in real life it's an experience, definitely.
I would imagine, because you've been on the track and you've seen fast people on the track.
But not like that.
Is it just sort of incomprehensible where you look at him and you go, looks like you're running looks different than anything I've ever seen?
It's just so fast. I just can't even understand how somebody can move their legs that fast. But his stride is really long too. So it's a great combination of things.
Did you learn anything from that experience, from being around him?
Oh, that's a great question. I want to say yes, but I'd probably be lying, because I was just more like, I want to say starstruck. But that's it.
That's it. You were which is completely understandable. I think. He was like the Muhammad Ali of this generation, kind of thing. Like bigger than life, but always seemed like he was having fun and he was joking.
And that's the best part, like that is what I always want from track or anything that I'm doing in life. Like I want to be able to know that I genuinely enjoy it, and that's why I love running so much, because I enjoy it. Like I go out and I work out and I train because I genuinely enjoy it.
So you genuinely enjoy running? Do you enjoy the workout? What part of it do you are you like, this hurts so much, this is awesome? Is this what you're thinking?
because I'm training for something, and my clients say this to me, and I'm like, everybody just has to you have to find your own why and why you do things. And I like working out and pushing myself to those limits. Even when I'm at practice dying, I think to myself, I'm like, the end result of this is going to be so cool. Like, I know how much hard work I've been putting, like how much I die at practice, how much I die at the gym. And even just that last race in Minneapolis, knowing that I've been working so hard, and I'm like, I've actually done the things that I need to do, and seeing it transpire like that on the track, it's like, girl, you just ran 12:84. You're doing something, so like, it makes it like, I look for that end result. So like, I know when I push myself to those limits, it's gonna bring out something better, like diamonds are made in the rough type of thing.
Okay. And so you can think that in the moment. So
Oh
in
yeah.
the moment when you're dying, you're like, I am dying. This means
Yes.
I'm doing it. It's
Yeah.
really happening. The diamond's getting compressed, and it's going to look beautiful. So you really think that. And
Oh
you
yeah.
think that when you're, and it's like, okay, so then the next set comes up, you're like, I'm going even harder now, because
Yes.
the more I hurt, the better it's going to be. Really?
Exactly. That's the only, I don't even know how people get through workouts if they don't tell themselves that. Why else are you doing it? If like, even if it's like you're doing curls and your arms are dead, you're like, well, they're gonna look so good in the mirror later. Like, you got to think about these things. You got to think about these things.
And is this what you're telling your clients when you're training them too?
I always just tell them, think about your end results. I have so many clients that have trips coming up, and it's like, that's okay. You're dying right now. But when you put that bikini on in a couple months, or when you do whatever it is, you have to find your why. And I hope it's not all physical all the time, because that's too much. But other things come from working out and being strong.
But you work through, it sounds like you work through the sort of the mental side of them, the imagery side of like, what's your dream? If you're going on this trip, if you're going to Barbados or wherever, it's like, and what's the bikini that you're going to wear, and what's it going to look like, and all of this stuff. Is this what you're doing with them?
Yes.
And it sounds like it works.
It does. It does. Everybody has a goal. Everybody has has something they're trying to work towards, even if it's just to be more active. It's like, okay, this is going to help your endurance. This is going to help you not be winded when you get up the stairs. Like, these are the types of things, so I always try to remind them of their goals.
I read somewhere that you said that you are going to win the medal that you deserve, or the medal that you deserve will be around your neck. What does that mean? Is that a specific color medal?
We all know what I deserve, but no, I'm kidding. I always tell myself, like, I used to be so, like, I'd get so stressed over a competition if I didn't place the way that I wanted, or if I didn't run the way that I wanted. And I just have to remind myself, whatever you have in that moment is all you have. You're not going to be able to come back to this moment. You can't try to foresee this moment. It's just what you have right now, And so I had to just tell myself that, like, if I stumble out the blocks, I'm like, well, that's what you had today. So it's not really what you can do about it. So if I can get on that track and I execute and I do the things that I'm supposed to do, then the medal I deserve will be around my neck.
Interesting. Okay. But that also speaks to all the work that you've done beforehand. I mean, it's performing on that day, but it's also all the work that you did before you got to that day.
Yes.
You're honoring that in that statement as well, aren't you?
Of course. Because like I said, I've been training so hard, and I know I have, and I know the work that I've been doing. That's why I believe I just trust my training. I trust that my coach knows what he's doing. I trust that I know what I'm doing, and I trust that those things will come together in the right way on that day.
That is, I mean, it's a great mindset to have, right? Because as you approach the games, it's really easy to be nervous. I mean, you're talking about you had trials in June, and then the Paralympics will start on the 24th of August, I think, is the opening ceremonies, right?
It is, yes.
And so you really still have a fair amount of time.
Yes.
You still have 6 weeks or so before you get to the races. Is this something you had to come to, this realization of, the medal that I deserve will be around my neck? Did you have to work to get to that mindset, or is it something that's kind of come naturally to you and is making it easier in some ways to approach going to Tokyo?
It definitely, I had to work my way up to this thought process. I think that's what my coach has taught me. Just, get into the race and execute. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Just focus on you and the things that you can control. So just being able to stay knowing, like I said, I used to be crazy. If I didn't finish the way I wanted, if I didn't do the things that I wanted to do, I would over obsess about it. And it's like, you got to just move on, like that 100 I ran in Minneapolis, it was great. And then I didn't run a great 200. And that was upsetting. But I'm like, listen, all you can do is move on and figure out how to be better next time. Like, you can't sit here and obsess over it because you did what you could in that moment. I don't know what that was, but I did what I could. And so, you just have to move on. So I definitely had to build up to that mindset because it wasn't always like that. I did not always think like that. I did not always feel like that, but for my own sanity and just the ability to kind of just overcome those things, I have to tell myself, like, in that moment, you have to just trust your training and everything that you've done up until that moment and kind of just execute from there.
Which, the thing is, when you're loose, when you're having fun, you're generally going to perform better, which
Exactly.
makes sense intellectually. But sometimes when you get onto the line, then you feel like, I know this has been the battle for me, as well as this idea of like getting onto the line and thinking, okay, this is really important. Like, I need to be better than I've been before, or, this needs to be my best possible race. Is there anything that you do, like, before you get onto the starting line to kind of get yourself into the zone? You've talked a lot about being in the zone and focusing just on the finish line and just on your lane and not paying attention to anybody else. Do you have to do anything to get into the zone?
I usually pray. So like right before, I'll get down into the blocks and I'll just kind of lean forward and lay on my lane, and I just pray really quick, and then it helps me it humbles me, and it just makes me feel like, all right, I'm like, track is life is track. But when I sit there and I pray, it kind of humbles me, and it's like, this is just a race. You've already prepared for this. Just do what you got to do.
Which is great. And it sounds like your faith helped you through the accident. It helped you through a lot of the difficult parts of your life, right? So it continues to be a strong part of who you are.
Oh yes, absolutely.
What do you expect in Tokyo? So in Tokyo, so it sounds like to a certain extent you went to Rio and you're like, hey, wow, I'm here. This is great. But you had no idea, really. In some ways, you didn't really know the significance of what you were doing, which probably allowed you to perform really well because you didn't know the significance. Is that going to be different at all when you go to Tokyo? Or will you sort of be able to have that, I don't want to call it naive, but in some ways it's naive, right?
It was.
Just wide-eyed, just like, oh, this looks like fun. I'm gonna get to race against the best people in the world, and it'll be fun, and it's like there's a complete genius in that. Is that sort of what you expect in Tokyo? Is that a part of who you are and who you continue to be?
Definitely trying to be more relaxed. I wish I could have that same mind as that girl back in 2016, but I don't. I know why we're there. I know what's going on. But just staying in that idea of being relaxed and just enjoying it. And like, when I was in Rio, I feel like I missed a lot of like things because I was just more overwhelmed by the whole experience in itself. But
like
now,
what kind of things? Like what kind of things did you miss, do you think?
Like when we went to opening ceremonies, I don't even remember walking in. lot of things I feel like I wish I could have just been more present for. And like I was kind of just going through the experience and opposed to like really understanding why I was there. Like I didn't realize there were gonna be cameras there and I could wave to people on TV. Like, like I missed a lot of those things. So I want to be able to just kind of be more present and like, doing whatever it is that I should be doing while I'm there. I just want to be more present and less naive.
Less, but in some ways the naive part sounds
I
like
know.
it's the really good part of just like, hey, I'm here. This is fun. I don't need to worry about things. And that to me sounds super cool. I mean, it just sounds like it'll be interesting to see. Will Tokyo be your last games, or are you thinking beyond Tokyo, or are you just thinking about Tokyo now?
Definitely kind of just thinking about Tokyo, but I've thought about it and I think whatever my body says. Whatever my body says. I'm gonna listen to my body.
Your body. Because you are racing against some younger people, right? And you've been a mentor for like Noelle Lambert, who's been on the show, to Beatrice, who's been on the show, and they're both, in their younger 20s. I think Beatrice is just 20, right? So
yeah,
I think she is. Yeah. And so, well, this to me is going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how you're going to perform. Are you just kind of saying 100 and 200, I'm open to whatever works, or is 100 more of that's your race? This is the one you want to do?
Well, I'll definitely be running both, but I think I have to stay in the same mindset. Like I gotta kill and execute both of those races.
It really is. Well, this is, Femita, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this is we are looking forward to seeing you in Tokyo and seeing you perform and seeing that focus on the track. But I hope in some ways that as I'm watching it, I'm able to see kind of that wide-eyed, naive woman who's like, hey, this is cool. We're all having a good time.
That would be nice. I'll be looking for her too.
I think you need to find her. I think you need to find her and invite her to Tokyo with you. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us. Look forward to you running really fast, and train hard in between, and get your rest and be ready to go.
Thank you very much for having me.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you all for joining us. If you didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing, you can find it archived on the One Revolution page on Facebook. We'll turn it into a podcast, so you'll be able to see it on YouTube and Spotify, Apple, all the places where you find podcasts. The greatest gift that you can give us, the highest compliment, is to tell your friends to tune in, that we've got awesome people like Femita, who is teaching us in this hour, like how we can do what we do better. And so please like us, follow us, but tell your friends. Thank you so much. Thank you, Femita. Have a great time. I look forward to seeing you on TV.